Hello, everyone. I'm Ron Swallow, and welcome to Reboot Rewind, the official after show for Reboot It. Today, we have myself, Ed Greer.
Hey, man.
Billy Business.
Sup, man? Why are you so like Eeyore? Hey.
And where's producer? Where's producer Bill?
That's what it was the problem. I was sad that producer Bill wasn't here.
Yeah, he's busy working today. He's not going to be able to make it, but he will be back in for some other ones pretty soon. I also want to mention Happy 4th of July, everybody. This is the appropriate time to be shooting off your fireworks, and be safe while you're doing it. Maybe stay away from people while you do it, but you know, Happy 4th of July, and I hope you guys watch Independence Day like you should.
Oh, we got to do that one at some point.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we have to.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to try to reboot at some point. Plus, it's one of my favorite movies to watch on 4th of July.
Fair enough.
It's not my favorite movie overall. Let's be clear.
Is it anybody's?
I don't know.
Ron, what are we talking about today? What are we doing here?
Oh yeah, let's get into it, guys. All right, let's do this. Before we dive into the actual episode, let's talk about how this one came about. We're doing Indiana Jones, you guys. Indiana Jones, one of Billy Business's favorite franchises.
Yeah, when I first met you, Ron, was when I came on Nerd Goat and I did Indiana Jones. I was actually super stoked that no one had chose them yet at this point. But you know, we always talk about the fabled Reboot It list, and this was one that was, I think, all of us were just like, yeah, put Indiana Jones on the list. And I don't remember anyone hesitating to give this one a go.
Which is interesting because it is a sacred property. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Well, it's sacred and super hard, but I think it's one of those things where we all kind of saw how important it would be to have to do this one. Of all the things that somebody would, metaphorically put a gun to your head and make you do, this would be one of those. This would be one of those where it's just like, can we just not? I mean, it's so indelibly Harrison Ford. It's the exact one you would beg off of, and like Billy says, that's why we had to do it.
Can I address the sanctity of Indiana Jones for a second? Because I actually think that the reason why, one of the things that I said on the episode was Indiana Jones, as much as it pains me to say, it's not cool right now. And I think one of the reasons that it's not cool is because it's not out there a lot, because I feel like it is too sacred to too many people. Like, yes, Harrison Ford was an amazing actor who made that role his own, but Indiana Jones as like an archetype of like the adventurer who's actually kind of a nerdy teacher and gets his ass kicked a lot, I just feel like that character is bigger than any one actor, and people have got to get over like the fact that like it's untouchable, because I truly think the minute that you say, well, it's off limits if Harrison Ford's not going to do it, guess what? He's not going to be able to do it. He probably can't even do it now. I really don't think Indiana Jones 5 is actually going to happen. But then it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, then the character just dies. It goes away, and we don't get to ever explore anything more with this really cool setup for a character. So I really hate when people are like, Harrison Ford or nothing. It's like, well, what if we had said that about James Bond? What if we had said that about Batman? Like, how come all these other great characters can have tons and tons and tons of different interpretations, but Indiana Jones, for some reason, is like completely off the table?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why. I mean, I guess, you know how fans get when they are obsessed with something. They don't want things, they want things to be their specific way. Like we talked about how Ed likes Batman, how I like Batman, how you like Batman, and they're all different. And although I would say that we're not quite as obsessive as some of these fanboys are, I'd say that it is still, to a lot of people, one of the greatest movies of all time. So, people hate when you mess with things that they think is the greatest of all time.
Also, I think we were a little bit shielded by the fact that, like, you can't do this better. Again, maybe it's an old saw by this point. We've done a couple of these shows, but, like, this concept that, like, you have to compete with the past is utterly ridiculous, because these things are going to be remade over and over again, regardless of if they are better than the original. And
Correct.
To somebody looked at that glorious thing that Richard Donner did, that Superman in 1978 or 79, whatever. Somebody looked at that and said, it ain't George Reeve getting guns thrown at him in black and white on TV. I don't like it. Somebody said that dumb stuff.
Yeah, they did.
So in that respect, all these projects are thus.
I mean, to just echo your point, I remember being a little kid when the Michael Keaton Batman came out, and I specifically just remember my grandma looking at me like, that's not funny. Like, where's the, like, it's the character's different to different generations. Again, I use James Bond because it's like, there must have been a time where someone was like, well, if Sean Connery's not going to be James Bond, what's the point? It's like, Roger Moore, I think, ended up doing more than Sean Connery ever did. I just don't know why Indiana Jones is not afforded that luxury, because I would love to see more, but I think that's why, as opposed to something like Back to the Future, where we used that trilogy as a launching pad like Jurassic World, I really applaud, and I love that we were all on the same page. It's like, let's not even bother trying to build off of what came before. Let's like start from ground zero. And I think that's really the only way that you can do Indiana Jones, is just to give it a full facelift.
So let's tell you what we basically came up with, since that seems like a good segue into it. So after hashing it out, we decided our Indiana Jones was $120 million pre-boot for Disney Plus. In 1933, a class of graduates, including Belloc, played by Oscar Isaac, Marion Ravenwood, Elizabeth Olsen, and Boomer, played by Henry Cavill, compete with Indiana Jones, played by Chris Pine, possibly Lucas Hodges, we'll talk about that in a second, attempting to get the Spear of Destiny to impress their mentor Abby Ravenwood, played by Daniel Craig. A prequel that tells the story of Indiana Jones becoming who he is and Belloc becoming who he was supposed to be, all directed by Jon Favreau. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, the boomer thing, just that was the John Peters. We had to get OK Boomer somehow, which was so dumb, but it works. Dude, it's an eye roll moment. But
if you needed more proof that, to break kayfabe, Bill comes up with those off the top of the dome in the moment and just throws them at us. If you need more proof than that, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that screwed us, and it was right on time to screw us. It was real Peters like, man.
You know why that one hurt too, was because I feel like we had a little bit of a rough start on this one. Like, we were all like, on an ice pond, and we were all just kind of, trying to get our footing. And then finally, once we all were like, okay, I think we got something, that's when it came. But that's what the show's supposed to be. John Peters is supposed to screw you the minute that you think you have it.
Yeah, I got to admit, I was pretty proud of that solve right there. That was one of those ones where we'll toot my own horn. Pretty great.
Indiana Jones was so tough too, because it's like, this was the first episode where I truly felt inferior that public school had failed me, because Bill's going off. He's like, well, we could set it in the Mesozoic era with the Han Dynasty and the Bicentennial. I'm just like, yeah, that's a good one.
Well, dude, no, all of us came up stupid on that one, because I think I said something like World War I was in the late 1800s, which obviously the forces that were gathering up to be World War I were certainly 1890s, 1880s even. All that was welling up, certainly. But I can't give myself a pass. Like the tens and to the teens, you know what I'm saying? Being, I just felt so stupid. So like all of us, but like you made me feel smart with that Mesozoic stuff. There's no dinosaurs in this.
Well, he's like, well, we could go to Iraq. I was like, oh, Iran and Iraq. Which one is which again? Like, I was just like, I truly learned real quick why I could never actually write an Indiana Jones movie unless I had like a true scholar doing the heavy lifting. And I'm just
and that's also
he fights a snake. You do the history stuff.
Well, that's the beauty of being able to research when you're writing. Like, you can take a minute and go, okay, I'm gonna be putting this in Butte, Montana. What is Butte, Montana like? And then you look it up on the internet, and then you go, no one should do anything in Butte, Montana.
Well, and nobody since Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is smarter than their smart character. everybody else has to, you know what I'm saying? You're right, guys. That's the thing about writing is like 4 minds, 4 sets of book learning, 4 sets of just BS, and maybe can come out with something. I think what was dope about it was we kept the educational aspect in the story. When we decided to make it like a graduate school, like I think however that idea came up, that was super dope because like having a class of people with Indiana Jones, people he had to test his mettle against, even in that cool adventure in the third one where we get to see all these seminal things about him, he's just kind of by himself, showing off, putting him in an inferior position to other people and seeing him gather skills from them, seeing him try to learn from being in that environment, seeing him have to actually conquer a few guys. You know what I'm saying? I think that was dope. That was a dope stroke.
So what do you think the hardest part of this episode was? What do you guys think?
Coming up with a plot
yeah,
and a MacGuffin.
The MacGuffin. Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's just like, I know we ended up with going after the Spear of Destiny, which again I think was a Bill thing, which, to be 100% frank, I truly thought was from Zelda. So I was like, oh shit, that's so real.
I'm sorry. That is the funniest shit.
I mean, I truly go back and watch that episode. I think Bill took mercy on me. But every time that you look at me, I'm just like watching a ping pong match between Bill and Ed for a long time. I'm just like, yeah, that's what I would do. I offer nothing of value for the first 25 minutes of that episode.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that though, because there were a couple comments that specifically that you like, Billy killed it on this episode. So like, some people really thought you did great. So
maybe they meant Bill and they just got us confused.
Look, you know, it's crazy though. All the ones where we feel like we can't contribute are the ones that we contribute the most. All the ones where it seems like, and honestly, if you're a good artist, and I don't know if I want to call this art, but hey, if you're a good artist, you can't really look at your work and be like, that's dope. Look how dope. We're not Kanye over here. You know what I'm saying? We're not just, these beats are dope. we're good. Listen to us on the synth. I don't think we do that too much. So it's like, you can't see how dope you are when you're doing stuff. And like Ron, for a while, Ron was on the, hey, I'm just a knock around guy over here. It's like, no, dude, when you look at the tape, you're contributing all through these.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, like, you know, I think that's what's so great about what we're doing is that I do feel like all of us come from a different point of view and with different ideas. We've talked about this before, but I think that also really helped in this. I mean, it helped that Bill knows a bunch of shit, like he just knows things, and I feel like us moving to a place where they got like really, I think there's like emotional stakes involved really well as on top of that.
Well, Well, one thing I was going to say is, as far as that goes, I didn't do it, Bill didn't do it, you didn't do it, Billy didn't do it. We didn't concentrate on what kind of action gags there were going to be. I really took note of that the last time I watched it to prepare for this. I was like, we are not trying to shoehorn gags in there. We're not trying to come up with a new Boulder thing. We're not trying to come up with a new, the anything. We're not trying to come up with a new any of that. We were trying to come up with a reason for him to be on this adventure, for him to have to go to places he hadn't gone before, to justifiably put him in an adventure that could realistically take place before the first trilogy and be sort of a preboot. I mean, we were doing a lot of yeoman's lifting in there that wasn't about stunts or flash. It was about the story. The whole thing about Abner. Stop calling him Abby, dude. Abner Ravenwood was a professor and an adventurer in our conception of it. Daniel Craig just passed his prime. I used to be able to jump down and get boulders rolled on me, and now I don't want to do that anymore. But I'm going to train the next generation of people who do that stuff. And Indiana Jones trying to defeat a class of people trying to be the next adventurer archaeologist. That was just a pretty masterstroke because it put things in people's minds, in our minds, so we didn't have to make up all the action gags.
And it really I felt like that aspect of it, like using all of these other characters to kind of slowly build the Indy that we know, and the Abner Ravenwood kind of being the prototype, I think just homages and takes the DNA from Last Crusade of how Indy got the hat and the jacket and the look and everything. It takes just enough of the feeling of the idea without like totally trying to like copy it note for note, which is where I think a lot of times reboots fail, is like, how do we just give you that sequence so you know exactly what it is? It's like, well, no, tell me, like, think of what that evoked, what feeling that evoked, and let's see how we can put that in a new spin. So I think we literally, what we did was we took the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of Last Crusade, and we're like, what if that was essentially the movie? Like, what if the feelings from all that was the movie? And I know it's like, well, they did the Young Indiana Jones show. It's like, yeah, but like, divorce yourself of all that had come before, and if you were to start all over, I kind of think that was the brilliance. Again, I don't think this would have worked if we had tried to do kind of a sequel reboot like we did for Back to the Future. I think we would have had a really hard time.
Or if we had just tried to do Indiana Jones and the Ark, you know, or
sure, just
Indiana
like a
Jones
straight up
Crusade,
Indiana Jones,
like, yeah. If we had just tried to do one of the movies like that, I think what this would do eventually, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but I can't remember. I think it would set up a situation where now the next movie comes and Indiana is on his own, and maybe Boomer shows up for a second and Belloc is the bad guy again, but it's now he's older and he's going after these things. He's the professor, you know, like eventually we move into that and we set that all up as a whole franchise of movies to start over again and go after different relics and different fun stuff. You know, National Treasure style.
And we did something kind of that we haven't done before this, and to my knowledge, we didn't do after this, which was we did a really fun thing where we're like, what if instead of trying to make this new movie, we put it on Disney Plus? Like, I loved this kind of like just dabbling into the business side of it, because, you know, Reboot It ultimately is like, how do we reboot this franchises? And that's exactly what the show is. But sometimes I wish we could do a little bit more of the kind of fantasy baseball aspect of like, how would this perform in a market? Like the business side of it. I mean, it's in my name. But I liked the Disney Plus angle because it also kind of like, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's subconsciously freed our minds of a lot of things, just knowing that it was going to the streaming service. I can't explain exactly why, but.
Well, just imagine, I don't know, just imagine, especially after all the things that have happened in the world, but just imagine trying to get people to come out in droves to justify $100-something million budget Indiana Jones movie. But if it's in their TV already and they gotta pay $4.99, come on, man.
Yeah, and
that's
I mean,
a hit.
and it's arguably it might drive people to sign up for Disney Plus.
Well, if they know
even more,
if they know you might get a new Indiana Jones dropped on you, if they know you might get Black Panther 2. It costs $230 million and it's in your TV already. You're welcome. We're Marvel. You know what I'm saying? Like if that was the type of thing that could happen on Disney Plus, I'm quite sure this stuff would spike up.
Absolutely. So, like, how do you feel like you did, and how do you feel like we did? How you feeling? Oh,
mute thing. Just start with, so how do you think we did?
So how do you think we did, guys? How do you feel about it?
I'm proud of this one. This is one that I walked away a little self-conscious on the day, and then after the fact, I was like, you know what? I don't know if anyone could have done a better job. Sorry if that sounds like super douchey, but like it's one of the few times where it's like I walk away defeated, and then I look later on, I'm like, you know what? I think I was just too in my head, because a lot of times when I walk away defeated, I watch it later, I'm just like, yep, that sucked. But I really, really liked this one.
Cool. Ed?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like some of the stuff that we were doing in the beginning was pretty bad, and I just remembered that. The way that it started getting so damn smooth, didn't really remember that. Didn't really remember the crescendo, didn't really remember Peter's busting in and screwing up our crescendo. I didn't really remember how we had put together a really nice compact cast that could actually be put together, especially if we had this kind of largesse for the Disney Plus brand and stuff. And last things last, I feel like it was a worthy way to show how he got all these powers. You know, that's one of the things you get with Indiana Jones. He's already cool. You know what I mean? He's already got a whip. and he's already better than everybody. He's better than the natives at their own stuff. Classic white man trope. And you know what I'm saying? He's just dope right off the biz app. You're not born that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There has to be some kind of thing. And it's not a training montage. It's an epic adventure that shows you how he became somebody who could make you call him Indiana in public, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because after rewatching it, I have to admit to you guys, besides the boomer thing, I was like, oh wow, some of the things I am saying are really dumb. Maybe some people are right, but I feel like overall we did get to a place that was really great, and I feel like I contributed some stuff, of course, just like everybody does every single time.
Well, dude, I think everybody felt really stupid, and then when Bill says the Spear of Destiny. Honestly, bro, Bill's very smart for coming up with that, but I've racked my brain since then. And unless you talk about Atlantis or something, there's not, or Bigfoot or something like that. There's not, there's not too much. You see how stupid it gets. Like the precipitous drop from Ark of the Covenant, Spear of Destiny. You know what I'm saying? Into
I can't remember, but I think I was pushing Noah's Ark for a little bit because I was just trying to think. It's like, what's the last like kind of big biblical thing, or like the 10 Commandments or something? But even then, it's like the thing that was cool about the Ark was that it had a supernatural power. The thing that was cool about the Grail was that it gave you a supernatural power. Finding the 10 Commandments would just be like, well, that's neat. Like they don't do anything. And the Ark, it's like, huh, nice carpentry. Like it doesn't do anything. So it's really hard to find. That's why it's just like, man, I don't have the GED knowledge to know of any other, trinkets in history that could potentially be interesting.
Yeah, there's ones you could come up with. I mean, since he does like to go biblical a decent amount of the time, you could do something like finding the nails that nailed Jesus to the cross. The theory is
here's
that
the
it has
thing.
God's
I feel like
blood.
that's so macabre, though. Like, I don't know. The Indiana Jones movies, they skirt this line of having like religious iconography, but somehow they are able to get around actually ever talking about religion. Like the fact that Indy doesn't believe hardcore in God and become like a devout Christian after the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark just kind of proves that they are, because he has proof of God now. Like it just proves that these movies are just like, don't worry about that, Well,
I think that's why they went back into the past for the second one, because they're just like, he can be incredulous and we can get it over again. We can get this is the first time I saw something supernatural. Those stones burned up that dude's hand and he fell into a crocodile mouth and I could hold it and it was cool. This is dope. This is God.
Yeah, it's so funny. God. This Temple of Doom is the only one where it's like those are, as far as I know, are kind of like made up MacGuffins. Like they're just kind of the stones for this village that like I don't think exists. But it's like crystal skulls were a real thing and the Grail's a real thing. But yeah, just finding a MacGuffin is so hard. Like I don't envy the intern right now that's like feverishly looking for a MacGuffin before Harrison Ford is in a wheelchair,
All right, guys, let's get into some of the comments the Rebooted community left for us. One of those ones, the first one, this was one of those ones where I realized I don't know who anybody is and how old anyone is. AVT Olick said Emily Blunt 36, Chris Pine 39. She too old for him. Shake my head.
Ooh, yeah, I don't have a good one for that. You're not wrong. We screwed up.
Well, yeah. I think the thing that was funny, it just shows you how quickly stuff can happen in these type of rooms, because it was like, I think somebody said, "Oh, she's like a mom," and then we were just like, "Oh, moms in the 30s." Crazy, it was just like, and like that was some kind of over period or something. It was so weird. But I do get, again, I think we're also acquiescing to a certain amount of whackness in Hollywood, like how Rachel Weisz didn't want to do the Mummy sequels. Maria Bello had to step in and play that character. because Maria Bello was okay with being seen as someone who could be a mom and have kids and stuff. But Rachel Weisz, maybe smartly, maybe not, was like, nah, I don't mess with that.
I mean, she dodged a bullet. That third Mummy's pretty crap.
Yeah, so that's us falling prey to Hollywood crap, and I will promise to try to do better in the future. It is one of these things. This one and Lord of the Rings, we got to talk about the man. It's hard to put other people in some of these places without making them subservient or weird or something. You know what I mean?
Yep. So I also didn't know how old Chris Pine was, to be honest. Nor do I think Emily Blunt looks her age. They both look very young to me, so I have no idea.
I mean,
I'm 43, so...
but we're dealing with Hollywood, and that's one thing I wish people would kind of understand. Is like, most people play about 10 to 20 years younger than what they are. I mean, Sam Jackson was doing Nick Fury when he was 60-something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He's getting up there, and he still, acts like a commando, so... It is what it is. People who are successful are freaking old. Newsflash.
I will say casting has always been a little bit of our Achilles heel. And at least for me personally, like, it's something that I'm going to try to be better about in season 3 is just kind of like taking some of the hiatus and like really starting to bring some new names in that's not just like the usual suspects,
I want to do that with directors too.
Same. Oh yeah, directors is stuff too.
I want to learn more directors. It's going to be we're going to have a nice time learning, you guys. That's what we do here. Up next, we got William Warren. There is some canon from the pre-Raiders World War I time setting to draw from. Mexican Revolution, yes, his time with Abner, but he also spent a lot of time abroad with, if I remember correctly, the French military. There's tons of canon to explore along the same lines they are talking about that they seem to either be unaware or are ignoring.
It's clearly the latter. I think we made it very clear that we didn't want to be beholden to anything, not just within the continuity of the movies, but also the continuity of the novels, the continuity of the Young Indiana Jones TV show. Because I don't know if a lot of people don't even know this, but Harrison Ford actually did a cameo in the Young Indiana Jones TV show, and he shows up as like a 90-year-old guy who's missing an eyeball. He just has like a patch over it.
That's
so
awesome.
There's just like there's a lot of stuff in there that we were just like, look, we could try to expand the mythos here, but it's going to be too hard. Let's just start from ground zero. So this was definitely a conscious choice to not bother to bring in anything from the past.
And also, the whole point of it is a creative endeavor. I think an episode we're going to do a little later, go in more in depth on this. But on this one, I'll say, as a creative endeavor, you could do one of two things. You can go, oh, there was a 3-issue arc in 1977 where this character had a space baby on the planet Ego. And then Silver Surfer came and rescued him and dropped him off at Avengers headquarters. You can go that route. Or you can go the spirit of that and the spirit of how, and number 3, he got all of his skills all in one little quick adventure. The spirit of this, the spirit of that, take a little bit of spice from all of it and distill it down into something that kind of does all of it for a new generation. That's more what we're trying to do. We are not trying to, trying to find the last galactic seed, and plant that and have the old thing grow again. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to create new seeds. We're Monsanto.
Yeah. Our Indiana Jones is kind of like it's an amalgam of all the adventures kind of like rolled into one new package. I mean, that's what a good reboot should be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, and let me say, as a person who has written a bunch of jokes about how he is annoyed that they have taken stuff from comic books and ruined it, I also would like to say that the more I've done this rebooted and the older I've got, and the more like creative endeavors I started being involved with, the more I learned that my opinion about fandom can't always go into story. It just can't, because it interferes with the flow of things. If you're constantly obsessed with, well, this has to be done and this has to be done and this has to be done because these things are part of the character.
It's also like, it wasn't so much an issue on this one, but for other ones we've done, it's like, if you love that character so much, you like don't want to put them in peril. You almost like, the greatest stories, the movies and the books and everything that we really like love and revere and stick with us are the ones where the characters just get put through the ringer. And that's why a lot of, like, I'm sorry to say it, but a lot of fan fiction is terrible because it's just hero worship. There, you know, you don't want to put your character in a situation where, you know, I don't want to write Batman like that because then he doesn't, you know, that makes him not look like as good as, you know, he's not the best. It's like, well, that's the whole point. I want to see what Batman looks like on his not best day because that's an interesting story.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I do want to go back to the Emily Blunt and Chris Pine thing. Something happened that I'm a little confused about because we responded to ABT. Yeah. Totally fair point. We were honestly off base with both suggestions given the story we're telling. Consider our final suggestion of Elizabeth Olsen paired with Lucas Hedges as Indy in this story, and now we're cooking with gas.
Yeah, see, that's what happened. It was in a comment, not the actual episode.
But that must have been Bill, because I don't respond using the rebooted account. But where would he have gotten Lucas Hedges from? It's so funny because Rod and I both were like, you know, before this Rebooted Rewind, we're like, yeah, we ended up on Lucas Hedges. And it was, as Ed put it, the Mandela effect. So I was like, I don't remember saying it, but I remember that's what we ended on. But that must have been where it came from.
And also, it's one of the things that I think we do and maybe should do going forward is figure out, unless these things are just like, oh God, square peg, square hole, just perfect. Just come up with 2 or 3 for each of the principal things, and as I state on this show a bunch of times, the drinking game started, that genre of person. You know what I'm saying? Get a couple of the same genre of person, or even mix up the genres of people to have different takes on it. But like, these people could do it. You know,
Joker, just break a pull queue in half.
Yeah. Let's just we'll do more battle royales to see who gets to play these roles going forward, because I think people like to delight in the possibilities of it, and I don't want to wall off any possibilities unless it's like super perfect. Like I think Cavill and maybe one other muscle bound menacing person, but Cavill he cocks his arms, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boomer. That's Boomer.
That is super Boomer. Also, Brock Stanley said, feel like you make Harrison the head of a museum and has a young pupil who he sends on an adventure, maybe?
I honestly think this is probably the other side of the coin. If we had decided as a group that we were going to move forward with everything kind of counting, this is almost like the way you'd have to go is like, well, Indiana Jones probably, if he's always like, it's in a museum, he'd probably take up more of like a Brody type of role, you know, kind of like head dean of the school, or maybe he, you know, owns the museum, whatever it is. It felt like the safer, less interesting choice. It's not to say it wouldn't work, but it just wasn't.
But also, it's like, okay, you go to see a Godzilla movie, right? And it turns out it's Godzilla and his amazing friends. And Godzilla's the guy in the chair in a lava base, pushing buttons and telling them where to fly. And just like, yeah, this is a great Godzilla movie. No, you don't say that. No one would say that. So an Indiana Jones movie, unless he's in the scrap, getting shot at by Nazis, as Ron said, whipping the spear of destiny out of someone's hand and into his, and the music dun hits, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Unless that's happening, why you got Professor X as Indiana Jones? Now, I do not balk at maybe we could, if Harrison Ford was down for it, maybe he is the Abner, and I think that's what the viewer is saying. If Harrison Ford was in the Abner role and we just kind of had a 50-year-old stuntman jump in to do stuff for him,
yeah,
I'd say that's fine. But again, we're looking at the 60s now.
I think I disagree. I think that wouldn't work at all. I think you would be so hung up on the fact that it's like, no matter if every person and everyone was like, Abner, what do you think about this, Abner? Like, if we use that name over and over and over, it would still be like, oh, that's Indiana Jones. Why is this other guy like? I don't think it would work. I think if you're gonna do Indiana Jones as a character, there's still a lot left to mine from that character. We really, like, in terms of like, who is this guy, what is he all about, we don't really get a lot of that stuff until the third movie with his dad. So there's still enough for that character to be explored that I think if you're gonna do it, I'm sorry, you got to cut ties with Harrison and just start clean.
You know, I think the viewer was thinking maybe the Abner role would be played by Indiana Jones, and he would be a person acquiescing to the fact that he's old as hell. But
he's not actually being Abner. He's actually Indiana Jones as a mentor.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, I think from the viewer's point of view, and like I said, I like what we did better than anything anybody has suggested. Let's make that clear. But I think if you had to bite the bullet and say, let's say Peters comes down and he doesn't say, hey, make them lollipops and boomer and stuff. He says, no. This is your Peters directive. You're going to put Harrison Ford in this motion picture.
Yeah.
Then you go, this dude is too freaking old to do anything. Maybe he's finally acquiescing to the fact that he's too old and he gets a crew together. But in the end, he's going to have to do way more than an actual old man could ever do.
Which honestly, that John Peters suggestion not only probably would have been the most realistic thing that would actually happen, but second, I think that would have been almost an insurmountable odd. I don't know how we would have gotten around. Like, it would have just been, that would have crushed it. If we had to put Harrison Ford,
because it becomes Indiana Jones and the kids, like Indiana Jones teaching kids stuff, slapping stuff out of their hands, making sure they don't fall into a booby trap. There's only so many times you can play that joke, and I think they would get pretty tired. But Indiana Jones coming up to a booby trap and not knowing what's what, and somebody being like, "Dude, don't you know anything, dummy?" I think that's funny because it's like he's trying to become something. That's one of the things. If you're already at your end goal, there's nowhere to go, and nobody's at their end goal at 14 like they kind of made Indiana Jones seem. Indiana Jones was dope as hell and scared of nothing at 14 and handsome. Come on, dude. I mean, there's nowhere to go.
Then he got scared of snakes, and that's it.
He got one flaw. Some kryptonite fell into his crib. Jesus.
Yeah, agreed. Then Michael Leahy, Leahy. Obviously, the best decision for the Indiana Jones series in terms of the movies would be to leave it alone. But if they feel like they have to make another one, this is one franchise where rebooting it is ideal. I remember being adamant that only Stallone could be Rambo, and Last Blood proved that there should definitely be a cutoff point for action stars.
It's brutal, but it's true. Brutal, but true. I mean, that's kind of the whole issue that, like, honestly, I truly, they keep losing writers and stuff. I don't think we're going to get an Indiana Jones 5. I don't think it's going to happen. I would much rather, and this is not just tooting our own horn, I would rather them go with something like this, just like start fresh, because it blows my mind that Disney owns Indiana Jones now. They don't own those other movies. But they own the character now, and it's almost in their best interest to just start from the ground zero. Kind of like how if you go to Disneyland now and you go to Star Wars Land, there ain't Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. It's all the characters that they made, that they built. And it's like, why wouldn't you want to do that for Indiana Jones? Because you're sitting on an IP that you're basically not using.
Yeah, hey, Disney, listen to us, hire us. Give us all of your money. Please make me a Disney shill. I'll do it right now.
Dude, after this goes wide, man, we're going to see all these things at Disneyland. We won't make any money, but we're going to see all these things. We're going to see a young, handsome dude. He's going to look exactly like Chris Pine.
Dude, if they gave me like a Southern California annual pass but didn't pay me, I'd be like, all right, that's fair. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm cool with that too.
Give me a voucher for like a free churro or something at least.
Oh man, their churros are so good.
See, this conversation is why there need to be guilds and unions. That type of stuff is why.
Fat kids like me, it's like, I don't need residuals. Just give me a Coke and a churro and we'll call it even.
Limited churros!
All right, so we got one last comment here, and this is a good one. It's Emily Lyon. It was probably a choice beforehand, but just a little disappointed female Indy was never considered at all. Maybe that seemed too gimmicky, but with how much talk there was about it on the internet, I would have liked to hear that in the discussion.
That's fair. You know, the fact of the matter is, if we're rebooting from total scratch, it definitely was an oversight on our part to not at least even have the conversation.
But not to be white devil's advocate and me with you guys together. I'm not trying to do that, but we did make Marion Ravenwood, older. One of the other. One thing I don't think was made very clear in the thing, and I think it's our fault for not making it clear. If Ravenwood has a daughter that's in the same class as all these rough and tumble guys, and he's taking her along on this adventure, she must have a bunch of value. And even Ron said that over the course of the episode, or rather the movie, Indiana Jones would learn stuff from her as well, because she's studying at the feet of her dad. She's the Indiana Jones. I'm not trying to retrofit it, but she would be technically the closest person to the person who taught Indiana Jones everything he knew. She's the Robin of the person who taught Indiana Jones a lot of what he knows and who he wants to be when he grows up. So I just wish we had to lean more on that. You know what I'm saying? As far as her being part of the troop. Once we decided that we made Ravenwood, or Marion Ravenwood, part of the group, and she was aged up, we just kind of left it there and didn't really pound home that she would be intrinsically involved in the adventure and part of, you know, the gang, and part of, frankly, the rivals that Indiana Jones would have for you know, the elder Ravenwood's affection. She's kind of a romantic block. Maybe he wants to be romantic with her, but he also wants to love up on her dad and learn all this stuff. And she's an impediment to that. She's more of a rival than Cocked Arms and Belloc even. So we could have really leaned on that more. And if we had more, you know, thoughts about female agency and stuff, we would have done that. So yeah, that's a lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there would have been a problem with Indiana Jones being a woman at all. That could be very, very solid. I think the problem, and this maybe has just popped into my head, like Tomb Raider, because
right,
if you do Indiana Jones with a woman as Indiana Jones, you get like a Tomb Raider vibe to it. And I think it would be very important if we did that to make sure that we were very separate, like normal outfits. No, you know what I mean? Like just like, I don't know, just one of those things where, yeah. But also we were doing it in 1933. And I think arguably in 1933, having Indiana Jones as a woman would have been a little bit difficult. But if we did a modern version, that would be very easy. What do you guys think?
Worth the discussion. Probably, again, like I said, probably more than what we gave it. But I do like the idea, because even Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of shows that Marion is just a tougher person in a lot of respects than Indy is. So even though the movie's not called Indiana Jones and Marion Ravenwood and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, it very much is her movie too. And I think giving that character of Marion Ravenwood more agency, and, you know, giving that character more to do and making her in a lot of ways superior to Indy, it kind of also goes around that thing of just like, you know, switching genders or switching race and just being like, well, we did our part. You know, that's not really a solve for anything. Instead, it's like, let's make a character who's female that actually matters to the plot, which I think our intentions were there. I don't know if maybe we did the best of job of fleshing it out, like you said, Ed.
But comments like these are very important, because we do need to make sure that we have them in our conversation, because that's how we get better as people. We listen, we learn, and we make better decisions on the next time we do things. Is that it? Nobody else has anything else to say?
I think I said my piece on the one thing, so we can do a pickup of you being like enthusiastic about the fact that we're done.
Yeah. So thank you all for doing comments, leaving comments for us. I said it the last time, but I'm going to say it probably every time. It really makes a difference to us. We love listening to your ideas. It helps us get inspired, and we hope that you're getting inspired as well. So that does it for Reboot Rewind. On behalf of myself, Ed, and Billy Business, we want to thank you for watching and being a part of this really special community we built here. We'll see you all next time.